Buckle up, this is a long one. Before I get into it, I want to paint you a picture of where I was in life at this point. It was 2015, I was grinding through nursing school, and if you've ever been in nursing school, you know that is not a casual thing. That is your entire personality for however many years you're in it. Every free moment is studying, every dream is about clinical rotations, and every dollar counts because tuition doesn't care about your feelings. So I was waitressing. Not glamorously, not at some trendy rooftop bar, just a solid, well-loved local restaurant that had built its entire reputation on word of mouth alone. No ads, no billboards, no social media presence to speak of. Just good food, good service, and people telling their friends. Which, if you think about it, means every single customer interaction mattered. One bad experience could ripple through an entire social circle. The owners knew this. The managers knew this. And every staff member who lasted more than a month knew this too. I had been there long enough to be trusted. Not officially a trainer, I didn't have the title or the pay bump, let's be clear, but I was reliable enough that when new hires got cut loose from their official training, I was one of the people they'd station nearby to catch them when they started drowning. Which in the restaurant world is not if, it's when. So when we got a new hire I'll call Danny, I wasn't surprised to find myself paired near him on his first real solo night. Danny was older than me by probably 20-something years. He had just been released from prison, which he was upfront about, and honestly, props to the manager who gave him the shot because Danny was trying. You could see it in everything he did. He was careful, he was polite, he triple-checked orders, he apologized for things that weren't even his fault yet. He was the kind of person who made you want to root for him, you know? He was nervous in that quiet, tightly wound way that made your heart hurt a little. Not falling apart nervous, just aware, painfully aware that he was starting over, that this job mattered, that messing up had consequences he understood better than most. I liked him immediately. That night he had the section right next to mine, close enough that I could keep half an eye on his tables while running my own. The plan was simple, let him find his footing, hop in if things got rough, make sure he ended the night feeling like he could come back tomorrow. Easy enough, on a normal night. This was not a normal night. The table came in maybe an hour before our section was supposed to close. 6 of them, all in their 20s, that specific brand of loud and confident that you clock the second they walk through the door. Not necessarily mean yet, just the kind of group where you already know at least one of them is going to be a problem. You develop a radar for it after enough shifts. Danny got them seated and started off fine. He was nervous, but holding it together, smiling, going through the motions. That's when the trouble started. The woman I'll call the leader, and she was absolutely the leader. The whole table orbited around her, started asking for something that wasn't on the menu. She was very specific about it, very casual in that way that's actually not casual at all, like she was testing him. She said they had it at the other location all the time, that we obviously had the ingredients, and that it shouldn't be a problem. Now look, a more seasoned server might have smiled and firmly redirected her. But Danny was 20 minutes into his first solo section, and this woman had the energy of someone who had already decided how this interaction was going to go. So he came to me, this slightly panicked look in his eyes, and asked what he should do. I told him to check with the kitchen. See if they'd make it. If not, I'd handle it. The cooks were fine with it, it was basically a wrap situation, nothing complicated, and I thought, okay, crisis averted, we move on. But that one accommodation was all she needed. That was the door, and she walked right through it and set up furniture. From that point on, every single time Danny came to that table, she needed something else. The moment he set something down, she'd remember something new. More napkins. A different drink. Something on the side. Can you check on that? Can you bring extra? Actually, can you swap this out? It was relentless, not in a distracted, genuinely forgetful way, but in a deliberate, watched and timed way. The second he turned to leave, her hand would go up. I started covering his other tables without making it obvious, folding his cycles into mine so his other guests weren't sitting there forgotten while he was trapped. He'd shoot me these grateful, exhausted looks every time he passed me, and I'd give him a nod like I see you, you're okay, keep going. But here's the thing I didn't know yet, here's the part that changed everything for me. I didn't know what she was saying to him. Because while I was watching from a distance and seeing a demanding customer, Danny was standing at that table being told, in a voice clearly meant to carry to her friends, that he was the worst server she had ever seen in her life. That he had no idea what he was doing. That she didn't know how he even got hired. She would make these little comments every time he came over, just loud enough, just pointed enough, while her friends laughed or at least didn't tell her to stop. And Danny, quiet, careful, starting over Danny, just kept smiling and taking it because what else do? You need the job. You need the shift to end. You just keep going. I didn't find out until later. I didn't find out until after their food was done and their plates were cleared and they were sitting there taking up a closed section, and Danny came up to me looking like he'd been wrung out and asked me how to process an employee discount. Employee discount. I blinked. Employee? That's when it all came out. She wasn't just some random demanding customer. She was a trainer. At our other location. She had come in, recognized that Danny was new, and spent the entire meal treating his first solo section like her personal performance review of someone she'd already decided to fail. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew how restaurants worked, she knew the pressure of a first real shift, and she used every single bit of that knowledge to make it worse for him. And now she wanted stacked employee discounts, multiple employee numbers on one check, and free birthday cakes for the table, and the birthday song, immediately please. I have thought a lot about what I felt in that moment. I've tried to find a word for it that isn't just furious, because furious doesn't quite cover it. It was that specific, clarifying rage you feel when someone hurts a person who was already vulnerable, who was already trying their hardest, who had done nothing to deserve it. The kind of anger that doesn't make you want to yell, it makes you go very, very quiet and very, very focused. I told Danny to go get the cakes ready but not to bring them out yet. And then I went to find my manager. Now, I want to take a second here and tell you about this management team, because they are genuinely a critical part of the story, and they deserve their flowers. Good restaurant managers are rare. Like, actually rare. Most of the time you get someone who's either checked out completely or so worried about their numbers that they'll throw their own staff under the bus to keep a table happy. The kind who'll apologize to a rude customer and then turn around and tell you that you need to handle it better. I've worked for those managers. I know what it feels like. These managers were not those managers. They were the kind of team that had your back, actually had your back, not just in the break room but in front of customers if it came to it. They took pride in their staff, and they took pride in how their restaurant was run, and they understood that the word-of-mouth reputation they had built meant something. It meant that every person who walked through the door was supposed to leave feeling taken care of. That was the whole thing. So when I pulled my front-end manager aside and gave him the rundown, the relentless demands, the public humiliation, the employee discount stacking, the free birthday cakes, all of it, I watched his face shift from his normal calm into something that I had very rarely seen from him. Quiet rage. Not loud, not explosive. Just this absolute stillness and a look in his eyes that said someone had made a very significant mistake tonight. He asked me what I wanted to do. I told him. He smiled, that slow, satisfied smile, and told me to do it, and then told me he had some phone calls to make. I almost asked what he meant. Then I realized. She had given her employee number. He knew which location she worked at. And this was a company where the managers knew each other. I left him to it and went to gather every single person I could find. Here's the thing about a restaurant that's mid-close. There are actually a lot of people around. The dining floor is winding down, but the back of house is still cleaning up. People are restocking, doing their side work. I grabbed servers, I grabbed bussers, I grabbed a food runner, I grabbed a dishwasher who absolutely should not have been anywhere near the dining room but was an enthusiastic volunteer when I explained the situation in about 45 seconds flat. I told them just enough. Trainer from another location. Spent the whole night tearing apart a new server on his first solo shift. Wants a birthday song. We're going to give her a birthday song. Every single one of them was in. I went back to Danny and told him we were ready. I watched his face do something complicated: relief, confusion, exhaustion, and something that was maybe the first hint of something better coming. I told him to lead us out. And then we descended on that table. The group looked up when we started coming out with the cakes, one in front of every seat, just like she'd asked, and the leader had this expression on her face that I can only describe as smug satisfaction. Like she had worked for this and earned it and was now going to enjoy it. Her friends were all smiles. We lined up around that corner table, and this matters, the corner matters, every single one of us shoulder to shoulder, more staff than they had probably ever seen assembled for a birthday song, grins on every single face. And then we sang. We did not sing nicely. We did not sing at a normal indoor restaurant volume. We sang that birthday song at a level that I'm honestly not sure was legal in terms of noise ordinances. We sang it loud enough that the corner bounced it back at them. This restaurant had hard walls and a lowish ceiling in that section, and the acoustics were not our problem. We sang it long. Our restaurant's version had extra verses, and we did every single one of them, at full volume, for the entire duration. Their smiles were gone within the first 2 seconds. Hands went to ears. People physically flinched. The leader's self-satisfied expression collapsed like a building with the foundation pulled out, and what replaced it was something between shock and genuine discomfort, because that song hurt. I know, because it hurt my ears too, and I was the one singing it, and honestly I would do it again without hesitation. We stood there, all of us absolutely beaming, screaming a birthday song at 6 people in a corner until the last note died out. Then we smiled, said happy birthday, and walked away. But here's the part that I think about most. While we were out there destroying eardrums, my manager was in the office on the phone. First, he called the manager at her home location. Shared what had happened. Employee number, behavior, the whole thing. By the time the cakes were done and the song was over and the table was gathering their things with ringing ears and very different energy than they'd walked in with by the time the leader came up to the host stand ready to argue about her discounts, my manager was waiting for her. With a phone. He handed it to her. Told her someone wanted to speak with her. And I watched from nearby as her face changed. As whatever argument she'd prepared dissolved. As she started crying, started making excuses, started explaining herself to whoever was on the other end of that line. I couldn't hear the exact words. The general manager of the company was apparently the one who had been looped in, the person one step below the owner, but I could see her face and I could see that it wasn't going well. She didn't get the stacked discounts. She didn't get any discount. She paid full price for that meal. And if I had to guess, based on the look on my manager's face, and the way he spoke about how we represented each other in this industry, and the quiet absolute certainty in his voice when he told me he had phone calls to make, I would guess that she did not clock in at her home location the next day. I can't prove that part. I'm not psychic. Maybe she kept her job. Maybe she cried and apologized and convinced someone to keep her on. Anything is possible. But I know what she did to Danny. I know how I described it to my boss. I know the look on his face when I did. And I know how that phone conversation ended not with a goodbye, but with her standing at the host stand, tears on her face, realizing that the restaurant industry is smaller than you think, that managers talk, and that word of mouth works both ways. She wanted a birthday song. We gave her one she'll never forget.